Hi everybody, this is International Master Atanu and you are watching Life is Chess. Today I shall show you a game between Capablanca and Marshall. Capablanca was one of the most difficult players to beat when he was at his peak, and he was a player who did not lose a single tournament game for almost 9 years of his career. It was during this stage this game was played. His opponent Frank Marshall was one of the most dangerous attacking player of his times. The game was played in Manhattan, New York in the year 1918. So let's watch the game and learn from the defensive skills of Capablanca and find out why he did not lose a single game for 9 years. Capablanca was white. He started with e4, and this is the Spanish opening. Black played the move a6. White played bishop a4. We have seen previously the pawn on e5 is it's not advisable to capture that because black would immediately get back the e pawn with a better position. Therefore, white opts for bishop a4, the most commonly played move. Black played knight f6, white castled, black played rook e1, and even here the pawn on e4 can be captured, but white will use the e file to get back the e5 pawn with either the knight or the pawn after white plays d4. So the move played by Marshall is the most commonly played move, that is bishop e7. White played rook e1, black plays b5, bishop b3, and here black decided to castle. White played the move c3, and this is one of the main ideas of the Spanish opening or the Rey Lopez. White doesn't defend the e pawn by playing d3 or even knight c3 because he wants to keep the pawns as well as the knight flexible. By playing c3, white aims at establishing a classical center by playing d4 in the next move. Black plays the move, usually black plays d6 here, after which white decides between whether to play d4 at once, allowing black to play bishop g4, pinning the knight and pressurizing d4, or white has an option to restrict the bishop first by playing h3 and then establishing a classical center. And of course there are thousands and thousands of games which have been played from this position. But what Marshall played 100 years ago is a move which is still considered to be one of the best in this position. It is one of the most popular moves named after Frank Marshall, and that move is d5. This was a new move in 1918. It is believed that Marshall was so excited with discovery of this move that he kept it secret for 10 years and he wanted to use it against the best player of the world at that time, and that was Capablanca. He got the opportunity in 1918 to play this move, and Capablanca was totally unaware of this move. It is a dangerous gambit. Black sacrifices the e pawn, but because white's pawns are on D2, c3 and d2, the pieces, the knight on b1, bishop on c1, and rook on a1 are stuck on the queen side. Black opens the center at the cost of a pawn. Let us see how the game continued. Capablanca accepted the pawn. He captured the pawn by first exchanging on d5 and then taking on e5. If we take few moves back, faced with this move, many players who are not prepared properly would opt for something safe like say d3. defending the pawn, but Capablanca takes challenge. Even if it were over the board, he calculated everything. His intuition said that it's possible to capture the pawn. Marshall went back knight f6, and nowadays the move c6 is most common, and there have been thousands of games with this move. At present, it seems black has compensation for the pawn sacrificed. As I said, the queenside pieces of white will need quite a few moves to develop. Black will build up dangerous counterplay in the meantime. But in the first game, the premier of this gambit, Frank Marshall, himself played the move knight f6. Now this is a very important moment of the game. Capablanca pawn up is defending against a dangerous and a very well prepared opponent. So while defending, the most important quality of a player is, and this is the first lesson today, is to anticipate opponent's move. Capablanca anticipated that black's bishop is likely to be placed here in the next move. It will attack on the king side. The knight would jump to g4, attacking slightly delicate squares f2 and g2. Therefore, Capablanca decided to retreat the rook. As expected, Marshall played bishop d6, and once again anticipating the move knight to g4, Capablanca played pawn to h3. The h2 pawn was slightly weak, and since Marshall had already prepared this variation, he played a very dangerous move here, that is knight to g4. He had sacrificed a pawn previously, now he is sacrificing a whole knight. The reason why he played this move is he clears the way for the queen, which will join the party, join the attack, and also attack the delicate square, slightly weakened f2 square. And white played the move queen f3. Now observe, white declines the sacrifice of knight. Previously he had accepted the pawn sacrifice, but now he calculates. He looks at this position and he finds out that hg4 is not such a great move because black would play queen h4. The reason this sacrifice was made is black wanted to clear this black wanted to clear this file for the queen. He wants to reach h2. Therefore, he had sacrificed the knight. And howsoever white defends here, white can either play g3. Black would simply capture on g3. And after white takes, black would take queen g3. King h1 obviously is not a great move because bishop b7 checkmates. And for any move like king f1, black would capture on g4, leaving white's king totally naked and totally very, very vulnerable to checkmate with queen, knight, queen, bishop, as well as the rook, which will cut off king's escape. So we go back to this position. There are other defense which white can try. That's most notably pawn move to f3. But here once again it's a very instructive moment. Black would play before checking the king. The best move is simply to cover the e file so that this king cannot escape on the center or on the queen side. And then in the subsequent moves, black can play bishop g3 and checkmate white by queen. Well, so the move f3 is also not a great move, but what we learned is before driving the opponent king by continuous check, we also have to ensure that the king does not escape. So we have to take care to cut off the escape squares. Another defense for white would have been, well, to play queen to f3. Now this move is very tricky because the most obvious reply by black is bishop takes g4, which Capablanca had seen. It seems black is going to checkmate white in 2 moves, but then white has a very good defense, that is pawn to g3. This is an intermediate move. Before the queen escapes, he attacks the opponent's queen, and suddenly it seems white has very good defense. So in order to overcome this defense, black had an even better intermediate move, that is, before capturing the pawn, he would play bishop h2 check. And after king f1, then he would capture bishop takes g4. Now any move like g3 can be simply met by queen h5, and once the queen on f3 moves, bishop h3 checkmate. Another defense for white would have been rook to e4. In this case, black had calculated a very brilliant resource, that is bishop to f4, with the idea queen h1 checkmate. So it was a brilliant calculation, and it is not only black who is attacking had prepared this, even white, while defending, had to calculate extremely carefully and find out what the opponent had foreseen. So for a defender, it is very important to have first anticipation and second very good calculation. One should not miss a single move, otherwise he would land up in checkmate. White did not capture on g4. He played queen f3, which is obviously a good move. It defends f2, strengthens f2, and also keeps an eye on opponent's rook on a8. Black played queen h4, swashbuckling. He's attacking, and we now know why Frank Marshall was considered to be a cowboy chess player who loved to hack opponents right from the word go. Here it's white to play. White played d4, finally planning to bring out his pieces, the knight, the bishops to defense, and black played knight f2 before white could consolidate. Black once again sacrifices his knight. Another very important moment of the game, Capablanca had to calculate and find out that queen f2, the obvious recapture, would be met by not bishop g3, which looks very tempting. It looks black is winning, but in fact it is white who has a brilliant combination and a brilliant resource, that is queen takes f7 check. After black plays rook f7, white can checkmate black with rook e8. This rook cannot go back because it is pinned by the bishop. So taking few moves back, then why did not Capablanca capture knight f2? And why did Frank Marshall sacrifice on f2? Well, the reason is, after queen f2, black would first play an intermediate move, bishop h2 check. So lots of intermediate moves today. Bishop h2 check, forcing the king to go to f1 because it has to defend the queen on f2. And then black would play bishop to g3. The difference, now the white's king is on f1, so that when black plays queen f7 check, this time white plays queen f7 check, black would capture the queen, and white does not have time to play rook e8 because it is white's king which is on check. So black would be winning. Therefore, white had seen not only his combination but also black's resources. As I said, one has to anticipate opponent's plans. Secondly, one has to calculate very carefully all the correct moves and then also foresee opponent's all combinations and all tricks and traps. Only then one can be a great defender like Capablanca and not lose for 9 years. Well, coming to the game, Capablanca played Rook e2, the knight on f2 is trapped. Black played Bishop g4. As I said, Marshall, the attacking player, keeps on sacrificing. And faced with this sacrifice, finally white accepts. He had to. And black played Bishop h2 check first. And after king here, he played Bishop g3 with the idea of checkmate on h1. White had to capture on f2. Black checked. White played king e2. And black played Bishop f2. Well, had he captured queen c1 at once, white could capture on g3, and on any move like, say, queen b2, white can play knight d2, and if black captures queen a1, which he has to, white will have a healthy bishop and knight for a rook. And all white's pieces are coordinating very well. White will be having almost a winning position. Therefore, black played a better move, better defense, that is bishop takes f2, with the idea when white captures on f2, black would capture on c1, and now, even now, white has a bishop and knight for a rook. But here, in this case, black's queenside pieces, the knight and rook, are paralyzed. They can't move. And here it is black who is better. Therefore, white opted for bishop d2 development. Now the f2 bishop is attacked. It went to h4. And finally, another great idea for defense. White played king, queen h3, threatening to exchange pieces. After black played rook e8, he played king d3. This is very important because white wants to tuck his king in on c2, which is a very, very safe haven for the king. So this is another great quality of a defender. He knows which is the safest square for the king. So the king traveled, it walked from g1 to c2 and found a very safe square. In this position, black played queen f1, king c2. He played bishop f2 and white pinned the bishop. Black once again played queen g1, unpinning the bishop. He now wants to play something like c5, opening lines in front of the king. White has two minor pieces for a rook. And now the move which Capablanca played is another masterpiece, that is bishop d5, controlling the square a8. We shall see why this square is important. The bishop also eyes on g2 as well as e4. All critical squares are covered by the bishop. And more importantly, after c5 and exchange, white played the move b4. A very nice move. The bishop on d5 had paved the way for the pawn to advance. Now black played bishop d6 and white played a4, activating the rook. The rook on a1 was paralyzed, but suddenly it springs to life. And now we see why the move b4, a4 as well as bishop d5 were so important. Had white played a4 at once, black had a chance to not open the a file but to play b4, somehow keeping the position closed. But white played b4 and then a4. As a result, suddenly white is having a very good position. Black tried to complicate by playing a5, and after exchange, white played rook a6, attacking the bishop. Now white has seized initiative. He takes over attack for the first time in the game. Black exchanged and played bishop to b4 with the idea of invading on e3. White played b6. He has a passed pawn. Now it's white who is attacking. Black played bishop c3, and before he could invade on e3, he played the move h6, because had he played rook e3 at once, white would play the familiar tactics. We saw it previously. Queen to f7 check. And once again, rook f7 is met by rook a8 checkmate. Well, not exactly, because black can delay the mate by playing rook e8, but it doesn't help. So, well, black played h6 first, white played b7, black played rook e3 finally, but it is white who is attacking. And it's worth recalling that at some stage of the game, a defender, after defending everything, has to go for attack, otherwise he cannot win a game. So Capablanca finished the game by playing bishop f7 check. Well, black resigned because any move like rook f7 would be met by b8, promoting the pawn, and after king h7, white has rook h6, checkmating black. If black plays gh6, white can play queen h8 and queen g8, checkmating. If black plays king h6, white can mate black on h5 after queen h8 check. And in this position, if black plays king h8, white can play rook h6, checkmate. A brilliant performance by Capablanca. For more videos on instructions on chess, keep watching Life is Chess.